Do you think time heals all wounds, or some never close?
Picture this. You're sitting in a stuffy lawyer's office, still smelling the rain from the car wreck that took your grandparents, and he slides over papers saying you're the sole heir to $24 million. Sounds like a dream, right? But then your family bursts in, eyes greedy as vultures, demanding their cut like it's owed. I said no, and that night, they tossed me out like yesterday's trash. Now I'm in this sprawling mansion, and they're coming back with tricks up their sleeves, only to find my attorney grinning at the gate. What happens next? Stick around. It's a wild ride of backstabbing and sweet payback that might just make you question everything about family. I never thought I'd be the one left holding the bag after Grandma and Grandpa Harper's car accident. It was a rainy Tuesday in Cleveland, the kind where the roads turn slicker than a politician's promise, and their old sedan hydroplaned right into a semi. I got the call at work, my hands shaking as I hung up the phone in the break room, surrounded by coworkers who patted my back like that fixed anything. 42 years old, divorced for 5, scraping by on freelance graphic design gigs that barely covered my apartment rent. That's me, Emily Harper. The forgotten middle child who moved away after college because family gatherings felt more like interrogations than celebrations. We'd grown up in that big house on the edge of town, the one with the wraparound porch where Grandma baked pies that could make you forget your troubles, and Grandpa told stories about building his auto parts business from a garage startup. But life pulled me away, marriage that fizzled, jobs that led to bigger cities, and yeah, a bit of resentment because Lisa, my older sister, always seemed to hog the spotlight with her perfect family facade. The funeral was a blur of black dresses and casseroles that neighbors dropped off like they were auditioning for a Hallmark movie. Everyone whispered about how tragic it was, the flowers piling up like unspoken regrets, but I noticed the side glances from Lisa and her husband Mark, the ones who always acted like they were the golden couple with their 2 kids and McMansion in the suburbs, just outside Akron. Cousins Tim and Sarah hovered too, Tim with his perpetual poker face from years pushing used cars at the dealership, Sarah clutching her purse like it held state secrets, her nursing job at the local hospital giving her that air of quiet judgment. We buried them under the oak tree on the family plot, the ground soft from the endless drizzle, and I drove back to my cramped one-bedroom feeling emptier than ever, the wipers slapping rhythmically against the windshield like a metronome counting down to nothing. A week later, the lawyer's letter arrived, all formal and crisp on heavy stationery, summoning me to his office downtown in one of those brick buildings that screamed old money. I figured it was just settling the estate, maybe a few thousand from their savings to split among us siblings and cousins, enough to cover a nice dinner out or pay down my credit card a little. Mr. Elias Grant, a silver-haired guy in his 60s with a voice like gravel from too many cigarettes and courtroom battles, shook my hand firmly and got right to it over a pot of office coffee that tasted like regret. Emily, your grandparents named you the sole beneficiary. The estate, house, investments, everything, totals $24 million. I blinked hard, sure I'd misheard, my coffee cup halfway to my lips as the steam curled up like question marks. He explained how Grandpa built it up from scratch, smart investments in real estate around Akron and Cleveland during the boom years, and Grandma's frugal ways, clipping coupons even when they could afford caviar, keeping it intact through recessions and family dramas. But why me? The black sheep who'd only visited a handful of times in the last decade? They saw your independence, he said, sliding over the will with its notarized seals gleaming under the fluorescent lights. The others, well, they had their chances and squandered them on bad decisions and handouts. I sat there stunned, visions of paying off my student loans, maybe traveling to those national parks I'd pinned on my vision board, or hell, just quitting the freelance grind and opening that little design studio I'd sketched in notebooks for years, flashing through my mind like a lottery win montage. But before I could even process the numbers, the door flew open with a bang that rattled the windows, and in stormed Lisa, her heels clicking like gunfire, Mark trailing with a leather briefcase clutched like a weapon, Tim and Sarah right behind them looking like they'd carpooled from a strategy session. How they knew about the meeting, I'll never guess. Small-town Ohio gossip travels faster than a brush fire in dry cornfields, probably some clerk's wife spilling to a neighbor. Lisa's face twisted from fake sympathy to outright accusation in seconds, her blonde bob swinging as she planted herself in front of the desk. "This has to be a mistake, Emily. We've been here for Mom and Dad all these years, handling the holidays, the doctor visits. You left for your big city dreams and barely called. We deserve our share, an equal split that's only fair in a family like ours." Mark nodded along, spouting something about unity and how the money could help the kids with college, his salesman's smile not quite hiding the dollar signs in his eyes, while Tim muttered about how legal fees would eat it up if we dragged this to court. Sarah just stared, her fingers twisting her necklace, calculating the windfall that could fix her endless complaints about hospital shifts and a husband who gambled away their savings. I felt my stomach not tighter than a bad design layout, the room closing in with their voices overlapping like a bad conference call. Fair? They'd borrowed money from the folks repeatedly over the years, Lisa for that failed boutique, Mark for his sure-thing stocks that tanked, Tim for his truck payments, never paid back a dime, and hosted those holiday gatherings where I was the odd one out, crashing on their couch when my marriage imploded without so much as a real hug or a "we've got you." The will was crystal clear, Grandpa's signature bold as his personality. "The will's clear," I said, my voice steadier than I felt inside, where doubt and excitement warred like kids fighting over the last slice of pie. "It's mine, as they wanted." Lisa laughed then, sharp and bitter as biting into a lemon, her eyes narrowing. "You'll share, or we'll make your life hell, starting with every relative we can call." The meeting devolved into shouts bouncing off the wood-paneled walls, Mr. Grant trying to mediate with his gravelly calm, but they wouldn't budge, circling like they owned the place already. By evening, back at Lisa's for what was supposed to be a quiet post-meeting dinner to hash things out, the air in their dining room thickened with tension thicker than Grandma's gravy. Mark pulled out a bottle of red wine from the sideboard, but his toast was laced with barbs sharper than kitchen knives. "To family," he said, eyes locked on me over the rim of his glass. Then Lisa exploded, slamming her fork down so hard the plates jumped. "If you don't sign over at least half tonight, you're no sister of mine. Get your things and get out right now. We don't need your greed poisoning this house." They packed my overnight bag while I stood there in the hallway, heart pounding against my ribs like it wanted out, the rain starting up again outside in sheets that blurred the windows. Tim drove me to my car in silence, but I caught his smirk in the rearview mirror like he'd won a bet. As I peeled out of the driveway, alone on the wet highway with headlights cutting through the downpour, my phone buzzed nonstop, texts from Lisa mixing threats with please, Mark promising consequences, Sarah sending crying emojis she thought would guilt me. I didn't reply, just gripped the wheel tighter. Instead, I headed straight to the old Harper mansion on the outskirts of town, the keys from Mr. Grant burning a hole in my pocket like a promise. Unlocking the heavy front gate, I stepped into the grand foyer, dust motes dancing in the moonlight filtering through the tall windows, the echo of my footsteps the only sound in the vast space. It felt like stepping into a time capsule, ghosts of laughter and arguments lingering in the air. But as I wandered the halls, flicking on lights that illuminated faded family photos, I found a hidden drawer in Grandpa's old oak desk in the study, a letter addressed just to me in his familiar scrawl, hinting at reasons they cut the others out. Something about a long-buried family lie from decades ago that could unravel everything. What was it, exactly? And would they come pounding on the door before the sun even rose, ready to force their way in? That letter from Grandpa sat heavy in my hand as I slumped into the armchair by the study window, the mansion's silence wrapping around me like an old quilt, comforting yet full of hidden patches. The rain had stopped, leaving puddles reflecting the porch light outside, and I could almost hear Grandma's voice chiding me to get some rest, but sleep was a joke with my mind racing like a hamster on caffeine. I unfolded the paper again, the ink slightly faded, his words jumping out. "Emily, girl, if you're reading this, we're gone and the wolves are at the door. We cut the others because blood isn't always what it seems. Lisa's got her secrets, ones that could poison the well. Keep it safe for the real Harpers." Real Harpers? We'd all grown up under that name, sharing DNA tests at family reunions like it was a game, but now it felt like the rules had changed mid-play. I tucked it away, locking the desk drawer with a click that echoed too loud, and headed upstairs to one of the guest rooms, the floorboards creaking under my sneakers like they were protesting the intrusion. Morning light filtered through heavy curtains, turning the room golden, but my phone's barrage of notifications shattered the peace before I even sat up. Lisa's texts piled up overnight, first furious rants about betrayal, then weepy pleas about how the kids needed braces and college funds, Mark chiming in with voice memos full of legalese threats that sounded copied from a daytime TV ad. Tim sent a single emoji of a knife, which I ignored, and Sarah's message was all caps, "We're family, Emily. Don't do this." Family? The word tasted sour now, like milk left out too long at one of their potlucks. I scrolled through, heart twisting despite myself, years of shared Christmases, Easter egg hunts in the backyard, even that time Lisa helped me move after the divorce, hauling boxes in her minivan while cracking jokes about my ex's bad taste in ties. But underneath it all, resentment simmered. They'd always treated me like the outsider, the one who didn't need them because I had my independence, which really meant I was too stubborn to beg for their handouts like they did from mom and dad. I shook it off, brewing coffee in the massive kitchen with its granite counters and appliances that looked untouched since the 80s, the aroma filling the air like a hug from better days. Calling Mr. Grant felt like the smart move, my voice echoing off the high ceilings as I paced. "That letter, it's about Lisa, isn't it? Something with her dad?" He sighed on the other end, the sound of shuffling papers in the background. "Meet me at the diner on Route 40, Emily. 10 minutes. And bring the letter." The place was a throwback, vinyl booths cracked from years of truckers and locals nursing hangovers, the air thick with the sizzle of bacon and fresh donuts that made my stomach growl despite the drama. Mr. Grant slid into the booth across from me, his tie loosened, handing over a manila envelope before I could even order. "Your grandpa was thorough. Read this." Inside were old photos, yellowed snapshots of a man who wasn't our dad, arm around a young grandma at some company picnic, and birth records with discrepancies. Lisa's listed father a ghost name, Victor Klein, Grandpa's old business partner who'd been cheated out of shares in a deal gone sour back in the 70s. My jaw hit the Formica tabletop. An affair? Forged papers to keep the peace? It explained the cold shoulders at family dinners, the way Grandpa always eyed Lisa's achievements with a mix of pride and suspicion, funding her boutique startup but never Tim's wild schemes. "They hid it to avoid scandal," Mr. Grant said, stirring his black coffee. "But it voids her claim, bloodline clause in the will. The others might know or suspect." I laughed, a short bark that turned heads from the counter. "Suspect? They've been circling like they own it. No wonder they crashed the meeting." We talked contingencies, locking down the accounts, hiring security for the mansion, his advice solid as the oak trees lining the parking lot. But as I drove back, windows down to let the crisp fall air clear my head, that secret burn like a hot coal. Share the fortune? With liars who'd rewrite history for a buck? Nah, time for a taste of their own medicine, something witty to shake the hive without getting stung. Back at the mansion, I fired up my laptop on the sunroom table, sunlight streaming in like an accomplice, and logged into the old family Facebook group, dormant since Aunt June's birthday bash 2 years back, full of photos from barbecues and kids' graduations. I scanned the letter, blurring the damning parts, but leaving enough to tease. Grandpa's note about secrets that aren't blood, captioned with, "Family trees sometimes need a good trim. Who's got the shears?" Hit post. The notifications lit up like fireworks, Lisa denying it furiously, tagging everyone with fake news from a grudge holder, Mark posting a long rant about respect for the dead, Sarah private messaging me with pleas to delete it before her coworkers saw. Tim, though, messaged sly, "Clever M. But meet me. I know the full story could change everything." I bit, agreeing to the lakeside park, figuring I'd flip the script. The bench was damp from dew, geese honking overhead as he arrived, hands in his jacket pockets. That salesman grin plastered on. Lisa's not the only one with skeletons, he said, pulling out his phone to show emails, him and Mark plotting to convince Grandpa to rewrite the will pre-accident, including anonymous tips to the IRS about undeclared assets. Convince? Sounded like blackmail wrapped in family love. We can team up, Tim urged, eyes darting like he expected company. Split it quiet, before the lawyers bleed us. I nodded, playing along, my own phone recording discreetly in my lap. Sure, show me the plan. He did, scrolling through a shared drive with petitions and forged affidavits claiming I'd coerced the will, me, the one who'd barely seen them in years. Laughter bubbled up again, genuine this time, at the sheer gall. Tim, this is gold. As he leaned in, excited, I snapped photos of his screen, then stood. Thanks for the ammo. He blinked, confused, as I walked away, already emailing the shots anonymously to his dealership boss, Ethics Review, your top seller's side hustle? By lunch, his calls were desperate, texts begging to talk, his online profile scrubbed of family ties. Felt like a well-aimed pie in the face, satisfying and messy, watching him scramble from afar. But as I loaded my car with the last boxes from my apartment, clothes, sketch pads, that one good coffee maker, the black SUV appeared in my rear view on the interstate, too close, weaving like it wanted attention. Mark's plates, no doubt. Heart slamming, I sped toward the mansion, gates looming like salvation. Were they done with words, moving to something uglier, like forcing entry under cover of night? The mansion gates clanged shut behind me with a finality that sent a shiver down my spine. The black SUV marks, no question, peeling off into the twilight like a bad omen retreating for round two. I double-checked the locks, my hands still trembling from the chase on the highway, where he'd tailgate close enough I could smell his cheap cologne through the vents. 42 and suddenly playing cat and mouse in my own inheritance. It felt like one of those true crime podcasts I'd binge on lonely nights, except this was my life, scripted by greed instead of killers. The house loomed larger in the dusk, its Victorian turrets casting jagged shadows across the lawn, and I hurried inside, flipping every light switch like it would ward off the uncertainty gnawing at me. Was it just a coincidence, or were they escalating from words to wheels, testing how far they could push before I cracked? Sleep was a lost cause that night, the four-poster bed in the master suite swallowing me whole under quilts heavy with dust and memories. I tossed, replaying Tim's confession at the park, the way his eyes lit up talking shares like it was a poker hand he couldn't lose. By dawn, birdsong pierced the windows, mocking my paranoia, and I dragged myself downstairs to the kitchen, where the coffee maker hummed to life like an old friend. The place was a time warp, copper pots hanging from the ceiling, a fridge stocked with expired milk from the folks' last grocery run, and that ancient radio on the counter crackling with weather reports about more rain coming. I called Mr. Grant while the brew dripped, my voice steadier over the phone. They tailed me home. And that letter, Lisa's dad was Victor Klein? Spill the rest. He agreed to come over, his tone all business, promising to bring tools for beefing up security. Sit tight, Emily. This family's got more thorns than a rosebush. He arrived mid-morning, toolbox in one hand and a folder in the other, his silver hair windswept from the drive. We started with the locks, deadbolts on every door, a keypad system that beeped like a spaceship when armed. As he worked, sweat beading on his forehead, he opened up over sandwiches I'd slapped together from the pantry, ham on rye, crusts uneven like my nerves. Elias Grant, at your service since your grandpa started the business in '72, he said, wiping mustard from his chin. Saw the whole mess with Klein, your grandma's fling during a rough patch, papers fudged to keep Lisa in the fold. But it ate at them. That's why the will's ironclad, bloodline verified by private DNA back in the 90s. I chewed slowly, the bread sticking in my throat. DNA? They'd tested us kids without a word, results locked away like state secrets. And the others know? He nodded. Suspected. Lisa confronted them once. After a big fight at Christmas '98, your uncle walked out. Never came back. They rewrote everything then, naming you sole heir to spite the drama. The revelations hit like cold water, washing away any lingering guilt about cutting ties. These weren't just greedy relatives. They were architects of a lie that spanned decades, holidays poisoned by unspoken truths while we carved turkeys and swapped stories. Mr. Grant handed me a USB drive next, small as a thumb but loaded. Estate files, but poke around, insurance docs, investment logs. Your grandparents layered it smart, contingencies for if things went south. South like a tampered accident? The thought flickered, dismissed as too Hollywood for Ohio, but it lingered like a bad aftertaste. We spent the afternoon wiring cameras, tiny eyes on the doors, driveway, even the attic, his jokes lightening the mood. This setup's tighter than my ex-wife's alimony demands, he quipped, and I chuckled, the first real laugh since the funeral, picturing Lisa's face if she knew. Dusk fell early, the sky bruising purple, and I waved him off from the porch, the new system pinging alerts to my phone. Alone again, I retreated to the study, plugging in the USB on Grandpa's dusty computer. Files bloomed on the screen. Property deeds for rentals in Cleveland's East Side, stock portfolios humming along, and that life insurance policy, $5 million more, pending beneficiary verification. Verification? A subfolder caught my eye, labeled Family Contingencies, with scans of the DNA reports and notes on potential fraud claims. Fraud from Lisa's side, maybe, but one entry chilled me. Monitor accident reports, Heir circling? Heirs? Victor's kids, long lost, sniffing around the fortune? Paranoia prickled as I clicked deeper, finding emails from a PI Grandpa hired last year, tales on Mark IV's suspicious finances. Had they pushed the folks into that rainy drive, or was it just debt collectors breathing down necks? A crash from downstairs yanked me back, glass shattering, followed by footsteps shuffling like intruders in socks. Heart slamming, I grabbed the poker from the fireplace, creeping down the grand staircase, shadows twisting in the hallway lights. The study window gaped open, curtains billowing, papers from the desk scattered like confetti from hell. Drawers yanked, the USB gone, someone hunting proof, probably the letter or files. I dialed the cops, voice hushed as blue lights flashed minutes later, officers poking around with flashlights, dusting for prints that smudged the sill. Looks like a pro, one said, notepad out. No forced entry, knew the layout. Knew it? Family then. My phone buzzed mid-statement. Sarah's number, voicemail trembling. Emily, please. We just want to talk, make this right. Don't turn it into war over old mistakes. War? They'd declared it first, evicting me like a stray cat. The cops left with promises of patrols, but sleep evaded me again, the house creaking like it held its breath. Morning brought resolve. I'd hit back, clever and clean. Sarah's victim, act at every reunion, tears over her shifts while pocketing silver for eBay, graded forever. I texted her, come over. Let's negotiate. Cameras rolling, she arrived at noon, fidgety in scrubs, makeup hiding bags under her eyes. $1 million, she begged in the living room, perched on the edge of a velvet chair. For the kids, my marriage, it's crumbling. When she slipped, admitting the tale was just to talk sense into you, I smiled, pouring tea. Talk? That's harassment, Sarah. No cops, better revenge. I clipped the footage, emailing it anonymously to her hospital admin. Nurse integrity check, family threats on tape. By afternoon, her shifts cut, calls frantic as her world tilted. Felt like a sly elbow to the ribs, watching her pay for the hypocrisy without a bruise. But as I climbed to the attic for more files, dust motes swirling in the beam from a single bulb, I found Grandpa's journal tucked behind insulation, leather-bound, pages yellowed. Flipping through, entries about the big fight in '98, Lisa's confrontation, and a hidden safe, for the real heir if Emily wavers, blood beyond the lies. Real heir? Not me? Doubt wormed in, but before I could read on, gravel crunched outside, tires on the drive. Peering from the dormer window, I saw Lisa's van, Mark unloading boxes of what looked like legal binders, Tim directing like a foreman. They were here, papers waving, siege underway. But Mr. Grant's car crusted the hill, pulling up to block the gate, his figure stepping out with a folder thick as a Bible. What counterpunch was he packing to freeze them cold? The crunch of gravel under tires grew louder, pulling me from the attic window like a magnet, my pulse thumping in my ears as I watched the scene unfold below. Lisa's van had parked crooked at the gate, hazard lights blinking like a warning, and Mark was out first, hefting a stack of file boxes with veins bulging in his neck, the kind of overkill that screamed desperation more than justice. Tim flanked him, arms crossed in that tough guy pose he practiced in dealership mirrors, while Sarah hung back by the van, wringing her hands like she was at a funeral instead of a fortune raid. The air was crisp, fall leaves skittering across the drive like scouts for trouble, and I gripped the journal tighter, Grandpa's words about the real heir burning in my mind. Who was it? Me, after all this, or some ghost from the Klein mess waiting to pounce? But no time for doubts. Mr. Grant's sedan nosed up behind them, blocking the entrance clean, his brake lights glowing red as stop signs from hell. I hurried downstairs, the staircase banister smooth under my palm from years of family comings and goings, now feeling more like a barrier than a guide. Peeking through the curtains in the foyer, I saw them freeze as Mr. Grant stepped out, folder in hand, his posture straight as a judge's gavel. "Morning, folks," he called, voice carrying clear over the fence, calm but edged with that lawyer steel. "If you're here for the estate, best state your business from there. Emily's not receiving without counsel." Lisa spun toward him, papers clutched like a shield, her face flushing under the makeup that couldn't hide the strain. "Counsel? This is family Elias, not some courtroom circus. Open the gate. We've got a petition to serve." Mark nodded, thrusting a document through the bars, his salesman bluster cracking. Undue influence, fraud, the works. Emily manipulated the will. We're contesting everything. Tim smirked, adding, and moral turpitude. She's unstable, divorce papers prove it. Unstable? I'd built a life from scratch while they leaned on handouts, but their words stung, poking at insecurities I'd buried under freelance hustle. I cracked the front door just enough to hear, staying out of sight, the cool air rushing in with whispers of impending rain. Mr. Grant didn't flinch, flipping open his folder and holding up what looked like a tablet, the screen bright even in the shade. "Before you serve that nonsense, consider this." He tapped, and projected images flickered against the gate, enlarged scans of those old love letters from Grandma to Victor Klein, faded but damning, alongside Grandpa's journal pages detailing the affair cover-up and the DNA tests from '98. Gasps cut the air sharper than shears. Lisa went sheet white, staggering back against the van. "Where did you?" "That's private." Mark sputtered, dropping a box that thudded like a punctuation mark. Turns out, Mr. Grant had gone digging after the break-in, subpoenaing records and uncovering emails where Lisa and Mark plotted to persuade Grandpa into a will rewrite months before the accident. Hints of spiked drinks at a family dinner, nothing. Lethal, but shady enough to spook. "Persuade?" Mr. Grant echoed, eyebrow arched. "Looks like coercion to me. And those tires on the sedan? Mechanic report says tampered, post your little chat." The group fractured, Sarah whispering furiously to Tim, who looked ready to bolt, while Lisa banged on the gate. "Emily, get out here, this is our legacy too." Legacy? Built on lies they'd nurtured like weeds in the family garden. I stepped onto the porch then, arms crossed, channeling the independence Grandpa praised. "Legacy of what, Lisa? Borrowing till the bank foreclosed your boutique? Or Mark stock tips that left Mom and Dad bailing you out?" They whirled, eyes wide, but I kept my tone light, laced with that wry humor to mask the hurt. "Come for coffee? I make a mean pot black, like your chances in court." Mr. Grant chuckled low, but the tension coiled tighter, uncertainty hanging like fog off the lake. Were they behind the accident, or just opportunists riding the wave? The projection shifted to financials, Grandpa's transfers blocking Lisa's claims years ago, tied to the bloodline clause. "You're out," Mr. Grant said flatly. "Klein blood voids it." Defeat rippled through them, papers wilting in Mark's grip, but Tim lunged forward with a counterpunch. "We've got proof on her, texts from the divorce, showing instability. She'll crack under scrutiny." Instability? My ex's abandonment, the nights crying over designs that paid pennies, it fueled me, not broke me. Rage simmered, but I played cool, waving them in through the side gate for one last chat, cameras whirring silently. In the living room, on those velvet couches that sagged under old stories, I served lemonade from Grandma's pitcher, tart as the truths bubbling up. They ranted Lisa about fairness, Mark quoting statutes, Sarah sniffling about kids needing stability they never provided. Then I dropped the hook. Grandpa left a video will in the safe upstairs. Addresses the liars directly. Eyes bulged. Tim leaned in. Play it. I nodded, but first, the twist uncoiled. Sarah cracked under the stare, admitting the tale and break and nudge were Mark's idea, just to scare her. Into sharing, not hurt. Scare? Like eviction from my sister's house? That's when revenge clicked into place, witty and wide-reaching. I'd rigged the room's smart speaker to live stream audio to a group chat with old family friends, neighbors from the block, church ladies who'd baked for funerals, even the PI Grandpa used. As they spilled more, Lisa confessing the coercion plot in whispers, the feed captured it all, pinging to dozens. Family unity, I quipped, hitting pause on the stream. Broadcast live now. Phones buzzed in their pockets. Lisa's face strained as she checked hers, clients pulling listings, Mark's boss texting, meeting now. By the time they stormed out, reputations shredded like confetti at a bad party, social media hummed with Harper greed exposed, lies and legacies. Felt like a masterstroke pie to the face, sweet and sticky, watching their perfect facades crumble from my porch. But as their van kicked up dust retreating down the drive, Lisa leaned out the window, voice carrying, "This isn't over, Emily. The estate's got deeper secrets, ones that could take it all from you." Deeper? Mr. Grant pulled me aside then, handing a small key from his pocket. "Attic safe, your grandpa said, open it alone. But hurry, that video inside might change the game." I climbed the stairs alone, key trembling in the lock, the safe door creaking open to reveal a tape and envelope. Popping it into an old player, Grandpa's face appeared, weary but fierce. "Emily, if they've come knocking, know this. The accident wasn't chance. Sabotage from within. And the shadow heir? Victor's child, hidden, waiting if you falter." Falter? Me? The tape cut to static as tires screeched outside again, cops or them circling back with worse. What blood tied me to this unraveling knot? The screech of tires outside the attic ripped through the static on the tape, yanking me back to the present like a slap from reality, my heart jackhammering as I fumbled the player off and shoved the envelope into my pocket. Shadow heir, Victor's kid, hidden in the wings, ready to swoop if I slipped. Grandpa's warning about sabotage hung heavy, the word within echoing like an accusation aimed at Lisa's crew, or maybe even further afield. I crept to the dormer window, peering down through dust-streaked glass, expecting Mark's van reloaded for war, but it was cop cruisers, 2 of them, lights flashing silent in the driveway, officers stepping out with badges glinting in the fading light. Relief washed over me mixed with dread. Had the stream footage triggered this, or was it the break-in report finally biting? Downstairs, Mr. Grant met them at the door, his voice a low rumble explaining the tale, the intrusion, while I descended the stairs slow, the journal clutched like a shield. The lead cop, a burly guy with a mustache that screamed small-town beat, took my statement in the living room, notepad flipping as I recapped the gate showdown, the live stream confessions spilling like beans from a tipped can. "Sabotage on the tires," he echoed, eyes narrowing at the tape mention. "We'll need that for the accident investigation. ME's report flagged irregularities weeks ago, but no leads till now." Irregularities? My mind reeled, piecing the puzzle. Mark's auto know-how, those persuasion emails hinting at more than talk. Mr. Grant vouched for the evidence chain, handing over copies from his tablet, and as they dusted the safe for prints, my phone buzzed Lisa's number, but I let it ring, the envelope's weight a reminder of deeper cuts. They left with the tape for processing, promising updates, the house settling into an uneasy quiet as dusk bled into night, stars pricking the sky like unanswered questions. Mr. Grant lingered, brewing coffee in the kitchen that filled the air with bitter comfort, his face etched with the wear of too many family feuds. The insurance, $5 million more, Unfreeze us with proof of no fraud, he said, sliding docks across the island. But that shadow clause, it's a wild card. Victor Klein had a daughter, unacknowledged, living quiet in Pittsburgh. DNA match could split it if you falter, defined loose, like contesting kin. Falter? After standing solo against the pack? Laughter escaped me, wry and edged, like chuckling at a bad joke in a tense meeting. Falter means what, Elias? Marry wrong? Or just get tired of their circus? He shrugged, stirring sugar that clinked like chains. Your call. But the will's yours unless challenged, and they've got motive now. Motive for the crash? The thought twisted my gut, evoking those rainy drives with Grandma, her stories of building from nothing, now tainted by betrayal's shadow. Audience might side-eye my choices here, cut them off cold, or offer an olive branch and risk the vipers. Blood or not, trust was shattered glass underfoot. Evening deepened, the mansion's halls echoing my footsteps as I paced the den, fire crackling in the hearth like Grandpa's old pipes. The knock came soft, almost apologetic, Lisa's voice through the door, muffled but urgent. Emily? Truce. Just us, no papers. I hesitated, then opened it a crack, chains still latched, peering at her red-rimmed eyes, Sarah beside her looking wrung out, Tim absent, Mark's van nowhere. Come in, I said, voice neutral as a design client's vague brief, leading them to the den where flames danced shadows on the walls. They perched on the couch edges, Lisa clutching a bottle of Grandpa's scotch like a peace offering, the label faded from shelf time. We dropped the suit, she started, voice cracking. After the stream, everything's falling. Mark's fired, Sarah's on leave, Tim's dealership cut him loose. Please help clear us in the probe. We're family. Family? The word landed like a kick in the shins, stirring memories of her braiding my hair as kids now. Frayed by lies. I poured small glasses, the amber liquid glinting, and raised mine. To truths I toasted, sarcasm light but pointed. They sipped, fidgeting, and I steered to the video. Grandpa spelled it out, your plot to rewrite, the tires as warning. Cops have it now. Lisa's hand shook, spilling a drop. We didn't. The tires were a bluff, like the tail. But the accident? Swear it wasn't us. Sarah nodded, tears tracking mascara. Just wanted security, like you have now. Security? They'd squandered theirs on whims, Lisa's boutique flop, Mark's gambles, while I scraped by, independent as Grandpa admired. Dilemma clawed, expose full, watch them sink, or mercy and maybe invite the shadow in. They leaned in, Lisa whispering admissions, the coercion dinner, forged notes to scare a rewrite, thinking it bought goodwill. But I'd prepped, laptop open, the full tape digitized and queued to email their networks, clients, bosses, even Victor Klein's old firm for kicks. As the fire popped, I hit send, casual as closing a tab. Security's earned, not stolen, I said, their phones erupting in unison, buzzes like angry bees. Lisa checked first, gasping at the flood, lawsuits from clients, pink slips official, whispers of charges for tampering. Mark arrested en route, tools linking to the break-in. Tim's texts begged off, his accounts frozen in the fallout. Revenge landed sweet, a witty gut punch that bankrupted their schemes, leaving them scrambling as I sat untouched. You're ruthless, Lisa hissed, standing, but her fire dimmed, defeat in her slump. No better than us. Stung, yeah, like realizing the pie you'd baked was laced with regret, but satisfying, watching greed's house of cards fold. Cops called later, probe closed, payout released, $29 million total, mine to steward. The mansion gleamed under new lights I'd installed, estate secure, but isolation crept in like fog off the lake. Alone in the library, book in lap unread, the envelopes and signed notes slipped out, blood calls, watch shadows. Shadow air real, or ploy to toughen me? Lisa's line cut, but whispers of Victor's daughter lingered, a potential claim unanswered. Fortune won, family lost. Did victory echo hollow, trading chaos for solitude? The fire died to embers, leaving me staring into the dark, wondering if revenge mends or just carves deeper scars, the truth forever half-lit.